A recent satellite study has uncovered a worrying trend: a significant rise in methane emissions from the oil and gas industry, threatening to reverse the progress made since 2020. This revelation highlights the urgent need for action to combat climate change. The data, analyzed by Rystad Energy, reveals stark regional differences. China's emissions surged by nearly a third, while the U.S. experienced a smaller increase of 4%. Russia, however, saw a 5% drop in the first quarter of 2025, attributed to the ongoing conflict with Ukraine and reduced production volumes. But here's where it gets controversial. The study identified over 45,000 methane plumes in the first quarter of 2025, a 14,000 increase from the previous year. These plumes, consisting of concentrated methane gas, carry a massive carbon footprint, equivalent to about 45 million tons of carbon dioxide. The Middle East, North Africa, China, Russia, and North America are hotspots for these emissions, with several countries within these regions contributing significantly. Interestingly, despite high production volumes, some of these countries have low methane intensity. On the other hand, aging infrastructure in Central Asia and North Africa may be responsible for a disproportionately high methane footprint relative to their global hydrocarbon production share. Upstream oil and gas production is a major culprit, accounting for around 20% of all human-caused methane leaks. The challenge lies in detection, but once identified, these leaks can often be fixed. This is in contrast to carbon dioxide emissions, which are harder to avoid as they primarily come from combustion. Patrick King, Vice President of Emissions Research at Rystad Energy, emphasizes the urgency of methane reduction. Companies need to shift from long-term strategies to immediate action. Methane abatement should be a near-term focus due to its shorter atmospheric lifespan, but far greater warming potential compared to CO2. Rystad Energy's data granularity reveals a seasonal pattern in methane emissions across most countries. These variations could be influenced by operational and demand factors, regional differences, and abatement efforts. However, detection-related factors like cloud cover, wind, and humidity may also play a role. China, for instance, recorded the highest methane emissions from oil and gas production in 2025. Emissions typically peak in early winter and dip in summer, mirroring natural gas production cycles. Despite a 50% increase in gas production since 2018, satellite-detected methane emissions have decreased by 30%, indicating improved operational practices. This trend aligns with methane reduction programs initiated by state-owned oil companies CNPC and Sinopec. Methane emissions also increased in the West, notably over the Bakken Shale in January, despite a milder winter compared to 2022 and 2023. In the U.S., methane abatement has been a political priority, with the waste emission charge finalized under the Biden administration in late 2024. However, this policy only applied to reported emissions and was later overturned. As the U.S. shale industry matures, the environmental impact of consolidation in 2023 and 2024 will be closely monitored. While large public E&P companies have expanded abatement programs, their future under the Trump administration is uncertain, especially with efforts to remove the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's greenhouse gas reporting program. Despite limited federal abatement policies and potential policy rollbacks, the U.S. shale industry is expected to continue reducing its emissions intensity, building on the improvements made in 2023. Preliminary 2024 data supports this outlook, with methane emissions predicted to remain stable, even as production increases. Global figures indicate an increase in the first quarter of 2025, but some nations have maintained the downward trend observed in previous years. Iraq, for example, has consistently reduced methane emissions since 2019, despite a decline in oil production and an increase in gas output. However, emissions surged nearly 50% in the first quarter of this year, likely due to activity in the Zagros-Fold Belt Basin, including flaring and production ramp-up. In South and Central Asia, India, Uzbekistan, and Pakistan have all recorded declines in methane emissions between 2022 and 2024. After reaching record lows last year, emissions rebounded in the first quarter of 2025, approaching early 2023 levels. In Uzbekistan, The startup of the Talabtepe gas field in 2023 contributed to higher emissions amid increased production. India and Pakistan also exhibit strong seasonal patterns, with almost no plumes detected during the summer months, independent of production. India is taking a proactive approach to methane management, with plans for a national inventory management system, signaling a move towards more comprehensive greenhouse gas emission tracking. The satellite data reveals a complex global picture, with both progress and setbacks in the fight against methane emissions. As we navigate these challenges, it's crucial to stay informed and engaged. What are your thoughts on the role of the oil and gas industry in addressing climate change? Feel free to share your opinions and insights in the comments below.